I'm 28, due to marry my fiancé Dean, 30, in a month. We've been together for 11 years and have a girl Ella, 5. Important info: Ella has autism, high functioning. She's incredibly quiet, keeps to herself, very polite and acts more mature than some adults I know. Obviously we want her there. She just wants to go as a guest. That's fine. She is the only child under 16 allowed at our wedding. I was talking to Mum the other day about final plans when she asked me about childcare for Ella. I was confused as we've made it clear from the start Ella would be there, to which Mum said that a sis isn't allowed to bring her kids. We assumed Ella wouldn't be there either because of their autism. BS on sis, 34. She has twins, M and F7. When they were 3, her ex caught her cheating. DNA test done. Kids weren't his. He left. She's been a single mum since. Before he left, the kids were well behaved. Had manners, knew right from wrong, etc. Once he left, she gave up parenting. When Ella got diagnosed a year ago, she came up with the notion that her kids are also autistic. They are not. She has taken them to multiple specialists. They have all said they don't have any mental disabilities. I know this because she moans that no one takes her seriously. She saw the same specialist that Ella saw and she told me that she's incompetent as she could diagnose my kid but not hers. Her kids act up a lot. No one invites them to birthdays as last time. They had tantrums as they couldn't open the birthday boy's presents and had to be stopped from smashing the cake in retaliation. If they aren't the center of attention, they scream at the top of their lungs. I had to ban them from my house because the last time they visited they destroyed Ella's favorite books because she said no to them while playing with her toys. I do not want these kids at my wedding because I know they will act up. And sis won't do anything because they're autistic. I can't discipline them, they don't understand. Luckily hers aren't the only kids under 16, so she can't claim I've singled them out. I explained to Mum, Ella was the only exemption from the rule as she's ours. She suggested that maybe it's best Ella stays home so my sister's kids won't feel left out. I politely told her no, and explained the other reasons for not wanting them there, but she kept insisting it was the right thing to do, or remove the rule for my sister's kids. After some back and forth I had enough and just snapped. I told her to back off. Just because my sister was her favorite didn't mean she had to have everything about her or her kids, and especially not at my wedding. Mum left upset at me. Now I have her and sis up my butt about it. Mum saying to either leave Ella at home or let sis bring her kids. Sis because I said the kids misbehave. Dean is on my side, and joked about just uninviting them both, which I'm seriously considering now. But am I the idiot here? Update. So both I and Dean have been going through all the comments, or at least as many as we could. There have been so many. We have decided against letting either my mum or sis come to the wedding. I made sure to message the venue and all my vendors setting a password that only we know, and will be looking into hiring security for the big day. Luckily the way the venue is set out means it will be impossible for them to possibly sneak in, and it will be made clear to security who to look out for. Now on to Mum. Oh boy. To say she blew up is an understatement. She actually came over this morning again to try and force me to make either choice, and I calmly made her aware that I am rescinding both of their invitations as I cannot trust them. At first she didn't seem to believe me, but when I stuck to my guns she started shouting at me that I was cruel, heartless, in playing favorites with my own kid. Of course she's my favorite and I'm gonna choose her. I was the worst daughter ever, and if that's how I was going to be then I can pretend I didn't have a mum anymore. I'll be honest. I thought hearing that would hurt, but surprisingly it didn't. I just shrugged and said fine, I'll pretend I don't have a sister either, goodbye. I've never seen my mum speechless, so I just steered her to my front door, gave her a small shove out, and closed the door before she could retaliate. She did bang on the door for a bit, but I refused to answer and she gave up. I have now blocked both her and my sister on everything, as well as made a post explaining what's been going on to everyone close to me on Facebook. Luckily most of them also don't like my sister, so I shouldn't get any pushback from that. Once we have the wedding I'll give an update, if anything interesting happens, and there is one to give obviously. But thank you everyone for the words of encouragement. Not the idiot, and I would uninvite both of them. Clearly, They don't care about celebrating you and your fiancé's relationship, but about turning it into a stupid competition or comparison game and making it about your sister. I'm very sad for your nibblings, though. They are getting the short end of the stick with the only dad they knew leaving and their mother being incompetent. Ella isn't just some random kid you decided to invite, but your own child. Of course it's reasonable that she would be an exception to the no kids rule, and even more so because she's in no way going to misbehave. Not to mention the fact that you and your fiancé are the best caretakers for her. She loves you both, trusts you, and this is something she's entitled to be a part of, as this is a union that will also affect her. Not the idiot. Not the idiot. Normally, it is a don't make exceptions to the child-free wedding rule, but I'm conflicted because it is your kiddo. Of course you want your kiddo at your wedding. It might be controversial, but I think that is an okay exception and a reasonable exception to make. I don't think you needed to expand on the reason that you didn't want those particular children at your wedding, but you are not the idiot for making an exception for your kiddo and otherwise requesting a child-free wedding. I was on a 3-hour midnight flight, and the couple behind me had 2 children with them. One looked to be 1 or 2 years old, sitting on her mother's lap, and the other child, a boy, was 5 or 6 I'm guessing. Before the flight even began, the boy started kicking my seat repeatedly for absolutely no reason. I turned around and politely told his parents to please tell him to stop. They seemed to do so, but that only made him kick harder in protest. After that, they just gave up. He continued kicking the chair at least once every minute. I was losing my mind. I tried turning back and glaring at his parents, but that didn't work. 30 minutes into the flight, when the kicking wouldn't stop and he didn't seem to tire out, I moved to the empty seat next to mine, in front of the mother and the little girl in her lap. The little girl was banging and kicking the chair even harder. At that point, I turned to the parents and asked them to please control their children. The father seemed apologetic, but the mother asked me I can't control them. They won't sleep. What else do you want me to do? After that, the couple bickered, the husband telling his wife that she had to do something since she was next to the children. It went on for a couple of minutes before they took some sort of action, and the kicking stopped. My father, who was with me on the flight, told me later that it wasn't that nice to say something about it and that I really embarrassed the parents for something they couldn't control. He said that children that young are almost impossible to manage. I told him that I'd get it if it were only the toddler, but the 5 or 6-year-old seemed to be a bit too old to not be disciplined in some way. And whatever they did after I talked to them a second time seemed to work, so that's proof that it's possible to do something. He just shook his head and said I'd understand when I have children of my own. Now that I'm out of the situation in the comfort of my own bed, I can't help thinking that maybe I was asking for the impossible and making a big deal out of something that was out of their control. I'm not a parent, so maybe I was quick to be irritated without trying to understand first. It seems so obvious at first, but the more I think about it, the guiltier I feel. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Children can be difficult, especially on a flight. You dealt with the situation with a calm attitude and didn't cause a scene. You even endured the kicking when that shouldn't have been an issue to begin with. To me, it seems you were understanding and civil. Next time though, after warning the family, I'd suggest asking the crew if there's anything they can do for you. Not the idiot. This happened to a friend of mine when we were going to Corfu. She asked them to stop their child kicking the back of her chair, and they did that awful thing of stop kicking the lady's chair or she'll tell you off rather than taking the responsibility themselves. The kicking carried on, so there was some swapping of seats, so the child was sitting behind a family member instead of behind my friend. Justice was served when the child eventually threw up over at least one of its parents. I had a similar experience when a kid was constantly kicking the back of my seat. I turned around several times asking him to please stop. He would for a few minutes and then start up again. This was a 6-hour flight that was full, so I couldn't move. I finally reached my breaking point, turned around and yelled at him to stop kicking my seat. His face turned white. But the results were great and the little brat never kicked my seat for the rest of the flight. His mother never said a word. 25. When I was 10, My father walked out of my life. My memories before that point are fairly blurry now, but I can never remember being that close with my father, or him ever really being affectionate or supportive in a meaningful way. My father claimed that he had met the true love of his life and there was no more point in sticking around with my mother or me. My father did not keep in contact with me and rarely even paid child support. The love of his life knew about how he abandoned me but clearly didn't care, because she married him a few months later and had kids with him. Based on their social media, my father is extremely involved in my half-siblings' lives. This obviously had a massive impact on my self-worth, knowing my father was clearly capable of being a good dad but didn't care enough to be one for me. I worked through my emotions with therapy. It took many years, but I eventually found a middle ground of being happy my half-siblings have the loving dad they deserve and move on with my life. I completed a master's degree recently. I have a good job, many friends, and a wonderful boyfriend. I had barely even thought about my father and his new family until he and his wife reached out to me through an unknowing loved one of mine. I came to the loved one's house for dinner without knowing my father and his wife would be there. My father and his wife's youngest child, Xander, 5, was born very sickly and will likely need a kidney transplant when he's older. They explained nobody in the family was a match and they were hopeful that I would get tested to see if I were a match. I laughed thinking it was clearly some kind of messed up prank. I realized they were seriously expecting me to help them and I pretty much lost it on them. I called my father a piece of crap, that he discarded his own daughter like garbage, but now that one of his golden kids was sick he wanted to talk again. I also told his wife that she should pray my father doesn't decide he's bored of her and her kids as well someday. I told them to find someone else to be their kidney farm and I wouldn't even go to get tested. I got a ton of messages from people calling me a horrible person and I'd let a 5-year-old suffer and potentially pass away. I eventually deleted my social media. My boyfriend and most of my friends support me and say my father and his wife can register with an organ bank. But then some of my friends and a relative are saying I should help for Xander's sake and not my crappy father or his wife. Because obviously the situation isn't Xander's fault and I am in excellent health and would likely be fine with one kidney. Even with registering years in advance, there's a possibility a kidney won't be available in time and I would make a little boy and young girl watch their brother suffer and pass away. And I should know what a huge impact trauma can have on a child's life. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. No person is or should be obligated to save another person's life by giving away one of their organs. This may sound harsh to some, but your younger brother is essentially a stranger to you due to your dad's own choices. The vast majority of people don't even consider giving their organs away to strangers, and I don't see why you should feel obligated to do so. Many people selflessly donate organs to loved ones or strangers, but that is a gift, not an obligation. Not the idiot. You aren't obligated to let someone back into your life who just wants to use you. And tell the rest of the guilt trippers out there that they are probably a kidney match for someone on the list too. Why aren't they donating? Just because he is related to you doesn't mean he is entitled to your organs. Not the idiot. Heck no. They've all been telling you what would happen to the sickly child if he doesn't get a kidney. Did they even think about the outcome of what would happen to you if you ended up donating your other kidney? Yeah, people can function with one kidney. But not all people. What if in the end yours failed? Would they end up helping you too? There's so many possibilities that could endanger your health and life without both kidneys. Please, do think about it. Every year my entire family except my dad goes on vacation on an island where we also own a house. So we don't have any hotel expenses. My dad just doesn't enjoy the place that much, so he doesn't come. But it's usually me, my mom and my 2 siblings with their partners. I've been with my GF for 2 years. Last year she didn't come to our family trip because we hadn't been together long enough and my mom and siblings thought it would be inappropriate. But this year, since we've been together for 2 years, my mom personally invited her. My GF was hesitant because of her bad financial situation and I assured her I'd got her covered. My mom doesn't work and only gets money from my dad. I work at the same company as my dad and I get paid a fairly good amount. 1 week before our trip there was some financial trouble in the company and we wouldn't get paid in time. Which means my dad wouldn't get his paycheck, neither would I for at least 2 more weeks. Thankfully I had some money aside, and if we had a decent budget limit on the trip we'd make it work. Due to the salary not being paid, my dad didn't give my mom as much money. While we were there I paid for my GF a couple of times, but seeing how my mom struggled I made sure to cover most of her expenses too, and I was left with little money so I could not pay for my GF and for my mom. My GF got pissed on our last day there when I got lunch and coffee for my mom, but I only got a juice for her without even asking her because it was the cheapest option. When we got home she confronted me about how I should rest assured he has it all covered, but that she almost starved because of me and didn't enjoy the trip at all because I covered every unreasonable expense my mom wanted to make and I didn't cover my GF's most basic necessities, and that if I knew I'd prioritize my mom living like a queen and my GF living like a dog who gets the leftovers I should just not invite her. I got very mad at her and I told her that of course my mom's comfort comes first and she didn't have enough money, so I wanted her to have her expenses paid and have a nice trip. And to get over herself because I'll always prioritize my mom's well-being. My GF got very mad over this and told me a simple fine. On our way back she barely spoke to me, and after I left her home she didn't reply to any of my texts or calls. I told my best friend what happened and he called me a tone-deaf idiot who did everything wrong and I should immediately apologize to my GF. He also said how my mom probably enjoyed humiliating my GF like that and how my siblings are also bad for not contributing to helping out our mom financially and she just relied on me. He said I'm an idiot who gets taken advantage of. You are the idiot. You promised you got her covered, then you let her starved. What the hell, dude? You should have informed your GF that you was short on fund and if she couldn't afford it, she should stay home. You dragged her into this trip with false promise and treated her like crap. Why would your mom need both lunch and coffee while your GF only got juice? Your mom wouldn't starve without a coffee. You would have managed your money better so everyone got enough to eat. I hope your GF will dump you. You told your GF you could cover her expenses prior to going on the trip. You then failed to do so. The fact that you wanted your mom to have a nice trip is wonderful, but you did so to the detriment of your GF. You then told your GF that your mom's comfort was more important to you, and always will be, making it very clear that your GF is not your priority. On that basis, your GF likely sees no genuine future in this relationship. So you told her you were going to take care of everything and then didn't. Ha! Sounds like you should have just told her in the beginning so she would have had the choice to just not go. Listen, family is important, but your siblings could have contributed and your parents should have money picked up. Obviously none of you were financially responsible enough and the trip should have been cancelled. You are the idiot. Don't make promises you can't keep.